Back at it again at Krispy Kreme. I am so hungry. Hello. If you've been here before, welcome back. If not, hi. My name is David. I make videos talking about media that I enjoy. This is the beginning of the production cycle of my thoughts, ideas, and theories of the Magnus Protocol Season 2. Magnus Protocol, of course, is a horror mystery podcast created by Jonathan Johnny Sims and Alexander J. Newell, created by the Rusty Quill Production Company. And season 2 just came out today. Just listened to the first episode. It's so good. It's so good. I said on my Tumblr that, the Magnus Protocol is not reheating Magnus Archives' nachos. It is making the same recipe, just adding something else to it, And I enjoy that so much. So, Notebook, I haven't added any stickers to it. Oh no. So I will be doing that sometime later. Anyways, this is my series where I'll be covering the last 4 episodes of the Magnus Protocol. This one's going to be episodes 31 to 34, giving my own thoughts, ideas, and theories of what happened in the episode and what could happen in the future episodes, trying to see what the mystery leads, what the answers are, how I'm going crazy about this show, etc., etc. Before I begin, I suggest taking a look at my Season 2 primer to get a little bit more information in terms of lore. Some of the lore stuff that I am going to be talking to as if it's common knowledge between you and I cover in my Season 2 primer, so check that out. Mainly it's about the OIAR categorization, that's the word, that they cover, and has some other information about that, and also what just happened last season and stuff like that. But also watch the show, it's really good. Anyways, this one's a hard one for me to say. Episode 31, Compartmentalising. Yes, CAT123RB555- the dates of incident and the dates of assessment. I'm not going to read out all those numbers. Also, it's just the same numbers repeated. But yeah, the description is integration (organic / computer (hardware). I don't know if this means anything, but the hardware is capitalized and anything else is not. Like computer is capitalized, integration is capitalized, but organic is not capitalized. I don't know if that means anything. It probably doesn't. Anyways, the CAT123 is an agent, a subject, and a catalyst, which I'm just going to say is just Freddy in and of itself. It is an agent in terms of maybe it's human, John and Martin, and maybe Jonah. Subject, the OIAR is definitely like a place, and then catalyst, the computer. It's Freddy. It's all Freddy there. And then rank B, still don't know what that is. Still don't know what ranks are. The DPHW, 5555, Death 5, Pain 5, Helplessness 5, and Weird 5. Wow, I don't know how exactly DPHW measurements are, because I don't know if it's about like quantity or quality of the death or the pain or the helplessness or the weird. The 5 tells, the repeated 5 just tells me it's sort of like a baseline in a way, but I also think it's sort of middle in the road type idea. I don't really know. We have to get more information about the DPHW to extrapolate more. Something else that I'm changing for the series is now I'm using actual words that are in the story, because 1, they're easier to pronounce, and 2, it's in the story. So instead of because I played around with date of catalogization or categorization, whatever, it's the date of assessment, which is the last section of the code, and then the date of incident, as they say in the story. Date of incident, May 14th, 2024, and May 14th, 2024 is the date of the assessment. This happened at the same time. The author of this episode is Jonathan Sims. The air date was February 27th, 2025. Brief summary. Colin eaten by Freddy, Sam in LEZ. That's just what I'm going to say instead of London Exclusionary Zone. Les. And the entities. I, an extinction, maybe. We'll get into that. This one's a lot, so we're gonna get through it. Okay. So in scene 1, Alice and Gwen find Colin's severed hand in the server rack. Which, if you remember back to the trailer, they found something in the server rack. I didn't know what it was exactly. Alice said it was Colin. It wasn't Colin's body. It was just his hand. That's pretty horrifying. There's no blood either, and there's wires throughout his entire hand. Wow, that's weird. And then Gwen wants to call police. Alice wants to call Lena, which Alice's insistence on calling Lena is really interesting because Alice didn't really care about Lena, but she knows that she knows something, and I need to know what Lena knows. But anyways, before Gwen can call the police, his hand fully just disappears, integrated back into the computer, which is great. The terminal beeps and it begins a case being read out by Chester/John, who reads out an error log. There is a fatal programming error and an attempted host compromise. The error is number 611. Don't know if that means anything important. I wrote it down. The JMJ equals null. And it's talking about extension Becker. Then there is a recording of Colin opening the door with a crowbar, and he comes up to the Freddy and is menacing it. The host, it says host equals self.host. So to me, that tells me that the computer is doing the inputs itself, because it would say probably host Lena or host Gwen or host Colin, but this is host.self-host. So this is computer itself doing these inputs. Extension Becker is compromised, saying that Colin is now compromised. The runtime is interrupted by unexpected data, and that unexpected data is damage from a crowbar. And it's marked as DPHW 460, which is the first time in the stories, in all 30 episodes, that we see a DPHW with a 0 in it. So that's something. And the DPHW 4600, if we attach the numbers, it's death 4, pain 6, which to me, that means it's saying that the crowbar is hurting it. It's saying ouchie with 4600. It then revokes Colin's admin privileges and says that the unexpected data is isolated/resolved, which means it has grabbed the crowbar. And then the extension Becker has been isolated and resolved, which means it's grabbed Colin. And then Colin screams in agony and begins to be both ground into meat and also incorporate into the computer. And his screams are so, I want to play it for you guys right now, but they're kind of disturbing. But I really, really like how disturbing it sounds. So, yeah, I'm not going to show it. Just watch this. It's so disturbing. It's so good. It's so horrifying. I shout out to Ryan Hopier Anderson for his voice acting of Colin being ground alive. Hell yeah. And then it says that it discards data. And that to me, it means it's removing Colin's oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium chloride, magnesium, and trace elements of Colin. And they're gone! And they're gone! It's this long list that's really fun hearing it as it keeps going. And it's so good. It resolves the extension Becker error, and it says the .jmj error has not been resolved, and then sort of returns to normal and says that now new admin permissions have been assigned. Alice and Gwen react to that. Obviously, they know, hey, Colin's dead now. And Gwen says they're safe unless they antagonize Freddy. Alice asks why Lena left, and Gwen says that it was all the Minister's choice, which is a lie. As we know from episode 28 Interruptions, she gave, in 27 Driven, she got the information about Lena's wrongdoings, and then in 28 Interruptions, she gave Trevor Herbert, MP, the information and was like, hey, kick her out. And then she did. And so she's lying about it. She's lying that she didn't have any choice in this. It was just bestowed upon her. I don't think Alice believes her, but Alice has other things to worry about than like the dubious nature of Gwen's ascension. Gwen says she needs to know what Celia experienced, and so Alice leaves to get Celia. She leaves Gwen alone, and Gwen's like, "Don't leave me alone." So real real funny there. Quick scene 2. A tape recorder turns on, and Sam is in the London Exclusion Zone, or the LEZ, and he's moaning on the floor, and he asks for help. He gets up. It's really hard to hear exactly what's happening, or to know exactly what's happening. The transcripts most help with that. We hear some scuttering, and then something echoes Sam, like sort of like recording him saying, "Help! I need help," and it plays it back to him in a weird insectoid sound way, and then he flees from that. Tape recorder shuts off. Scene 3, Celia comforts Jack and lies that Sam will be okay, that she was okay. So she's holding Jack. She says, Sam's gone, Sam will be okay since mommy was okay. And that both those are registered as lies in terms of Sam will not be okay and Celia was not okay in the domains, because she thinks Sam got sent back into the apocalypse. She thinks that still is happening, and so she's comforting Jack, puts him to sleep. Alice revives and says that Colin's dead and that Gwen's in charge and needs Celia back in the OIR just to get all the information together and stuff. As she's trying to get Celia to come back, Celia toys with the idea to not get involved in all of this. She's like, this is now the government's problem. They can just leave Sam to the government. And Alice is like, no. She guilts her to help her. Alice asks how Celia knows that Sam is alive but gone, and Celia lies that she's read cases about the rift, which is a full lie. We get the glitch. That's a full lie. We know that's a lie, and that it confirms it in the recording. So Alice guilts Celia to help, and Celia is gonna call her sitter, Georgie. Alice's phone rings, waking Jack, and I don't count this as a separate scene because it's pretty quick, but we transition to Alice's phone when it's Gwen calling her, and she's like, when are you gonna come back? And Alice is like, soon, we're getting a sitter, and Gwen's like, the photocopier is running, and that was so fun. I was like, all right, the photocopier is running. It's haunted fun. And she says that it's printing Colin's face and won't stop, which sounds really funny, but also really horrifying. So great balance there. I love that. And Alice says that they'll be there soon. She says, we'll go change your diaper as long as we get Jack in. Once we get Jack in his diaper and stuff like that. The Gwen and Alice's interactions here are so spicy and snipey at each other. Now that Gwen's in a position of power over Alice, so fun. In scene 4, Sam is fleeing. Once more, a tape recorder turns on. Sam's fleeing these scuttling, buzzing things. We don't get a description of it, but it is definitely a thing. I like to think of it as like a camera for like a PC. The ball that looks like an eye. But like on like tiny little metal legs. I kind of think of it like that, but we don't get anything about that. We don't get any names, whatever. Sam falls. He's going to be attacked by these scuttling things, and then he hears the sound of an APV approaching. That sort of wards away the scuttling, buzzing things that are following him. And out appears Warden Dave, which is the same Warden Dave that we got in the trailer, who was voiced by David Olt, same person as the trailer, and he tells Sam to whistle. Well, Sam tells him he needs help, and he's like, okay, I'll help you whistle. And Sam begins to whistle circus music, and Dave scolds him, tells him to whistle something nice, something cheery. And so he begins to whistle Green Sleeves, and that's enough for like the scuttling things to slow down their scuttling, as per the transcript. And Dave gets him into the APV, APV is the autonomous police vehicle. That's the APV is what the transcript calls it. It's, I don't know what it is. It's a vehicle. In scene 5, quick scene 5 here, Celia thanks Georgie for coming at late notice, and Georgie assures Celia that it's no problem. And so when this scene happened, nothing really important happened beyond just like, yeah, Georgie is now here babysitting Jack, which is not an odd occurrence. That's happened before. We know that. We've seen that in episode. We saw Georgie taking care of Jack in this episode, the name of which I forgot, the number of which I forgot too. But we saw it, so that's not odd, but just this one scene, it was really quick, and I was like, why is that? And then scene 6 occurs. Sam is in an interview room, and he has cuffs on, and Dave is looking over him. Georgie arrives, and so I liked how they establish Georgie in Protocol Universe taking care of Jack, and now Georgie in Archives Universe as Captain. They call her Captain, and they're all like professional about it, and she's like, yeah, I guess I'm Captain. It's sort of like a continuation of her being like the prophet, but she's like, I'm not actually a prophet or whatever. But yeah, she arrives, she's a captain. Dave says that Sam's human, but he's malnourished and needs an IV drip, but they need to get Georgie's okay before they save Sam's life. And so Sam says he wants a lawyer or a solicitor, which I guess is the UK version of a lawyer. Do they have the Miranda rights in the UK? I don't know that. Anyways, Georgie says that there are not many solicitors left, which is weird, but also an interesting. I'll touch on that. But yes, she says that he is in a warden facility in the London exclusion zone, which is the same one that we got in the trailer, and he asked how'd I get here, which is, how'd I get into this world? And Georgie says that he got to the warden facility getting a ride in the Gertrude. So they named the oldest vehicle that they have, oldest surviving vehicle, as the Gertrude, which is like, that's great. Who did that? Was that Basira? Was that Melanie or Georgie? Who named a car Gertrude? I saw this really funny post. I was like, it was an edit of a tweet before. This is it. It was an edit. It's an edit of a tweet that's like, when writers have 200 characters and try to fit it in, everyone's like, why is Gertrude now a car? That was funny. Yes, that. So, yeah. Georgie asks if he's a dreamer or a cultist or possessed by a wooden idol. And the way she's asking about it, she's like, are you a dreamer? Are you a cultist? Are you possessed by a wooden idol? They've seen it. They've seen many of that before. And he says that he's worked in civil service. She asks, like, is your domain like some Kafka-esque civil service thing? Probably not one of the bigger ones, but that makes sense. And Sam says, well, at this point, Sam's so tired and so weak. He says he should have drunk the tea, and then he falls unconscious. He mentions Celia, and then falls unconscious. So, in scene 7, Celia recounts the events of episode 30, Dead End Job, to Gwen, and says that portal is not the right word for the rift. No one says rift. It's the rift. She says it's more complicated than just a portal. She doesn't know enough to attempt a rescue, and she says that it might be impossible. And Gwen says that if they don't do what Colin did, they can continue business as usual. And this is registered as a lie. And I'm not sure if this is a lie that she purposely says or a lie that she doesn't realize is a lie, in terms of there's not going to be any business as usual. Gwen says that any investigations have to be off book and without OIR power behind it. So she kind of gives Celia and Alice an okay to be like, okay, you can try to figure out what's happening with Sam, try to get him back. I will try as well, but it has to be outside of being paid from the OI. You will not get paid for trying to save Sam, is basically what she's saying. And also, they will not be compensated if you get any hurt, any bad things happen while investigating, because they are not working under official OIR work. In the last scene, scene 8, Warden Heidi appears, who is voiced by the same voice actress from the trailer, Amy Brown. She's just finished Sector 11 doing a perimeter, and she's at Sector 12, which I believe is the same one from the trailer as well. And then she finds a tape recorder that they found in the trailer as well. She's like, "Oh, you're still here?" And she looks and says that, "Oh, you're still recording." And we hear the archivist approach, and it begins to pull Heidi's statement. So, surprise! Just like the first episode of season 1 of Magnus Protocol, we get 2 statements. And it's a secret one because normally in the first episode, they had the 2 assessments of the statements in the description, but this one only had the 1. This is not being assessed. This is a case for the archivist. When she begins to be intoned, she knows what it wants from her and knows that, like, the writing here is so good because it feels so smooth into, like, her knowing exactly why she's being intoned by the archivist and cannot stop. And I'll get to a little bit later what happens after that. But yeah, so she talks about entering her domain. She used to work as a security guard watching cameras at an art gallery, and she felt powerful about that. And so when I was first hearing it, I was like, oh, is she going to become an avatar of the eye? But she just felt powerful about it, but it's because she feared the power, I think, maybe? That makes sense. Anyways, she remembers the Magnus Institute disappearing all of a sudden and then being chased by cameras that turned on her. Like, it described as she's working and then the cameras turned on her instead. That's really fun. And then she describes her domain, which is running and hiding from the cameras, presumably in London. She would see others and she would have hope to push the people in front of her so that they get watched by the cameras, and she didn't. She feels guilt about this, I really like how it pushes how much the cameras are consuming her fear and do not want to kill her. Like, they don't. She says, not verbatim, they don't want to drink her, they don't want to eat her, they just want to watch her. And she calls the other people victim of the scrutiny, which is really interesting because that is also the name of an episode, 142 Scrutiny, which is about John taking statements from people without their consent. She remembers the panopticon falling. She calls it the Institute, but the panopticon itself falling, the eye closing, and leaving the domains. But the dreams and the scars she got from the domains continue. And we get that she talked to therapists and shrinks, but they all also had a dead look to them, like they were also scarred. And so that's sort of the idea that people like talking about in the fandom, like what happens after the fact. We're getting this after the fact, and that's really, really good. Because of these scars, she needs to trap the monsters that had trapped her, which is how she began being a warden for the London Exclusion Zone. She's angry, and she knows how this feels like and knows she's going to die. And she says there's no place left for monsters. And this is really cool because this is the first time that we see not someone resisting the statement pull of the archivist, but like knowing exactly what's happened and not allowing fear to take control of her as she dies. And I'm going to give you all my hate. And so Heidi dies, and Dave calls in. He's like, "Are you there?" And the episode ends. Notes. So Colin is dead. Maybe. I kind of feel like he's not really dead, or if he is dead, then something else is different there. 'Cause I feel like him just dying like that off screen, quote unquote, and then recording or whatever. I just feel like him as a main character dying like that is not as satisfying unless there is something else going to happen with Colin. Obviously, we don't know, but yeah. So Freddy calls him an extension. So that leads me to think that all of the workers are also called extensions, like extension Khalid, extension Ripley, extension Dyer. That's your last name. Extension Bouchard. So I don't know what that means, but that tells me that like extensions in computers is like something added on to the computer program, so that's probably what the workers are seen as in Freddy itself. The JMJ equals null, and then later it says not resolved. It needs something fixed. There's something wrong in JMJ, and people think that it's like John Martin Jonah error thing, compatibility. I don't exactly know what it means. No one does, obviously. But it's really interesting that here the JMJ has not been resolved after the computer fixes itself after being attacked by Colin's crowbar. This isn't a prediction now. Colin may become a reader with Chester Norris and Augustus. I mean, he got consumed by the machine. He got all inside it. He's inside it. This is what I think. If he's not like dead, or I mean, he is dead, but if he's dead, he's still gonna come back in terms of he's in the voice, and I think that'd be really cool for Alice to be just working and then all of a sudden hear Colin's voice reading out some random horror. I think that would be amazing for her psyche. There is definite elements of alchemy here, obviously, because of all the elements that are discarded from Colin, that are removed from Colin. All of those elements are elements you see within the body, obviously. There were some that I had to cross-check. I was like, chlorine in the body? But yeah, we do have chlorine in the body. And magnesium in the body, that shouldn't have been a surprise. But yeah, we have magnesium in the body. Sulfur in the body, we're all sinners. No. Yeah, we all of the elements are part of the body. And that felt very alchemical, thematic motifs, words that you usually see with alchemy. Also, who is a new admin? It reassigned new admin permissions to somebody. Who is that? Who we're gonna get a new character? Like a new character? That's really fun. I wonder who the new admin is. Gwen and Celia are lying so much. Their entire dialogue is just full of glitches that show that they're lying. And I love that so much for them. Gwen is over her head. In over her head. Is that the term? I said it wrong in my primer. In over her head, right? She that doesn't know what's happening. She pretends to know what's happening. And this will have consequences further on. And I cannot wait to see that. She's already messing up. And then she's also resistant of calling Trevor Herbert because she's like, he's really busy. But also, I'm pretty sure she's just afraid of being like, hey, the first day that you got me to become a manager, something wrong happened. And so she's probably trying to avoid that sort of confrontation. And it looks like right now, Alice doesn't suspect Celia of anything yet. Everything, like every interaction Alice had with Celia was, I wouldn't say kind, but definitely like an allyship there. And so, I would think that at some point Alice may suspect Celia about something, but right now they're on the same side, at least in perception. And so we'll see where that goes. Sam is malnourished, which is similar to the weakened state of Darian in 17 Saved Copy. In that episode, Darian had passed through the rift into from a different, not from Magnus Archives world, not from Archives, from other place, third place, passed into Protocol Dimension. Not touching Archives. We're not touching Archives in 17 Saved Copy. Anyways, he passed through that and he became really, really malnourished. And so it seems that we've talked about this before. Transporting across the rift tends to hurt you. So that's what happened to Sam and also the Archivist. When Georgie asks if he's a dreamer, cultist, or possessed, I'm not fully sure. The wording's kind of like weird here. And I don't know if she's like asking if he is one or was one. But it feels to me like she's trying to probe if he's like, because a dreamer or cultist, the possessed by Wooden Isle is a joke. But the dreamer or the cultist seems to be like former breaches into the LEZ, because they're like, how did this guy get in here? There might have been other breaches into the zone, and so probably like a dreamer, someone who is maybe 11 dreamer, maybe something with Oliver Banks. I'm not sure. But like a dreamer or occultist, people who are on the side of the fears somehow, probably trying to get into LEZ or something like that. That's what it sounds like to me. Sam says that he's civil service, and Georgie notes the domain. It's one of the smaller ones. So to me, when she's like, "Oh, was it like some Kafka thing?" It's not not one of the bigger ones, but it makes sense. That to me is telling me that she keeps track of prior domains. She like probably like knows all the domains that John and Martin went through, and then all the domains that her followers had been in, and then maybe part of entering into the LEZ wardens is to also let know what domain they were part of, to see if there was some sort of psychological thing that might affect their work, which obviously would be. But that to me tells me that she's keeping track of all the domains that happened in the change. This was a little bit before that, but she says that there's a little amount of solicitors, so that tells me that people didn't survive the domains at some point. Obviously anyone within the end, but maybe other things, other moments within the domains that like you kind of have to die, even though some people didn't always died and then came back to life and stuff like that. Death is kind of funky in the domains in the post-change world. But yeah, it's either that or they didn't survive the transition transition back into the normal world, either the loss of the domain, whatever state they were in, stayed that state, suicides, murders, whatever happened to Simon Fairchild, that there's might have been a drop of population, which is why there's not many solicitors / lawyers. Also, who wants to be a lawyer right now? Right after that, right after the hell of the apocalypse. What tea? Hey Sam, what tea is that? What tea are you talking about? Is he hallucinating? It might be something hallucination, but the only other time he was offered tea was in episode 8, Running on Empty, when he and Celia went to talk to Jerry and Gigi, Gertrude. They offered them tea, but Celia said no thank you. And I can't think of any other places where there was tea, so I don't know if this is the same tea that he's thinking about, if he's hallucinating or something. I don't know. I don't know if this even has any significance, unknown significance, if this means anything or not. There's tea. He's probably just sick with malnutrition and hallucinating. So yeah, the secret second statement of this episode, really cool. Heidi's statement is so cool. The writing is so, I love the part where she was like, they're watching her at every second of every minute of every day, etc., etc. That was really fun. The archivist is drawing strength from, like, there in the transcript, it says that it drinks readily and is happy about it, and so that to me is telling me that it was also damaged or hurt or whatever, weakened by the transfer into the rift, and so it's just drawing strength, maybe also being hurt as Sam was. I hope that the change will get the Order 66 treatment. Now, if you don't know about the Order 66, Order 66 is a moment, an event within the Star Wars universe. For some reason, they don't mark years as, they mark years as, I'm going to tangent about Star Wars, aren't I? They mark years as before the Battle of Yavin and after Battle of Yavin, which is so strange to me, because the Battle of Yavin was simply just destroying the first Death Star, and then there was a second one like 3 years later. So that's a weird time period. And also Order 66, where a large population of people were destroyed, killed, that is very significant to history. I can maybe understand it, maybe if they did like the destruction of Alderaan, because that was also very big. And so anyways, Order 66, all the clones who were allies of the Jedi were turned against the Jedi, and they started killing a bunch of Jedi. And so ever since the Revenge of the Sith, we got the Order 66. Clone Wars, we got Order 66. Clone Wars ended, and then more movies came out, and then Clone Wars season, what was it, 7 came back, and then we got more descriptions of Order 66. Order 66 occurred in the Bad Batch, and then occurred in Ahsoka. Was it Ahsoka? Well, that was the Clone Wars. It appeared in Rebels. It appeared in the video games, the not Force Awakens, the one with Cal Kestis. And so, as the Oh, also The Mandalorian with Grogu. And so as the stories, as media kept adding more and more Star Wars things to canon, more depictions of the moment of Order 66 happened. And so I and a lot of people enjoy those moments because it adds another layer to this horrific moment. And so I think if they keep doing this, it would be really interesting if they had that same sort of treatment with the change, because with Heidi we got another perception of what happened in the change. Celia remembers being taken into her domain. Sierra's had said something along the lines of like it just happened to her. Something about waves. There's some like waves happening, like in terms of one wave before, another wave before. And so we don't really get a full description of how people perceive being taken into a domain. And so here we have Heidi telling about that. And also, her entire life beforehand was not connected to the main characters. So if we're doing the Order 66 connection, the depictions of Order 66, none of those moments that we see are connected to the main quote-unquote characters, which are Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, we get the main characters of those individual stories experiencing Order 66. And so their stories are told. Here, Heidi has her own story, and it's not connected to anything to the Institute. Like, she knows about this Institute, but she's in London. She doesn't know anything about the characters, doesn't know anything about anybody. And that's really cool to see just some random person's perception of the change, the apocalypse, and that's really, really fun. And also, just getting more domains described, that's really fun. Hey, what kind of domain could you think about? And yeah, the statement sort of proves the presence or a remnant of the I being in protocol. In terms of, they're definitely connected. The fear entities are there. They're not Smurfs 14 in protocol. There's something else. They're classified as something else, but it's still the dread powers. And so as I move forward, I will be talking about the entities and Smurfs 14 in the framework of archives, along with whatever framework we get in protocol, which we don't have yet fully. Just going to be adding on to it. Like, it's certain that the dread powers are there. I'm just framing it in Smurfs 14 for my enjoyment. And, an extension to talking about the fears. Colin being eaten by Freddy could be extinction based, but it doesn't feel like that much. It feels more like Freddy monster, Freddy haunted, Freddy ate him, and has themes connected to the extinction, but it's not like 100% the extinction. That's just something. Like, if I had to point somebody like, yeah, this feels like extinction. He's getting eaten by a computer. What's his name? Yashenka being eaten by the computers. So that's just what I perceive it as. But anyways, yeah. So that was episode 31, Compartmentalising. Ooh, that's hard to say. Anyways, stay tuned for episode 32. I don't know what the name is going to be. This is getting overloaded, but hi, I have an orchid here. It's part of the Four Gentlemen, Four Seasons botanical collection. I have all four of them. And the orchid's going to be here. I might switch them out. But that's for later. Anyways, hello. Episode 32. Today was interesting. Good. It was really good. But okay. A solid follow-up for the second episode of the second season, I think, in my opinion. Compared to, it's very similar to episode 2, making adjustments, because it is a therapist talking to someone, going through it. And so I like that. I liked it a lot. Didn't understand much of it. We'll get into that. Episode 32, Restructuring. CAT2 RC1475 dash the dates. The description is building, parentheses, angry, dash, slash, dash, and slash A, NA, non-applicable. CAT2 is a subject, building, That's angry. And then rank C, still don't know what that is. The DPHW is Death 1, Pain 4, Helplessness 7, and Weird 5. The date of the incident was March 18th, 2015, and the date of the assessment is May 17th, 2024. The author of this case was Alexander J. Newell. The aired on March 6, 2025. Brief summary: angry building woman. And entities: extinction, buried, question mark, question mark, question mark. This one was difficult. So, scene 1, Alice is listening to music. She's very focused, doing something on a computer in the OIAR, and Gwen scares her, and they argue about scaring each other. Alice says she's lucky that she didn't punch Gwen, and Gwen says that Alice is lucky that she didn't fire her. And Gwen asks what she's doing. Alice says that she's checking missing persons just in case somehow Sam was placed in like a hospital and lost his memory. Well, obviously she doesn't find anything there. Gwen tells her to not get behind of the caseload. Alice doesn't care. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't give a crap about the caseloads. I'm trying to find my friend. And Gwen says if Alice attracts attention by not doing the cases, as in, she doesn't do cases, then Trevor Herbert, MP. I liked how there was a moment she says, Trevor Herbert, MP, OBENRNDR. What's it? Yeah. So OB&E is, I forget what it was, but it's a marker of like nobility or like official stuff, something like that. But then DNR, that's it. DNR, do not resuscitate. That was really funny there. But anyways, Gwen says that if Trevor Herbert gets involved, if Alice doesn't do her cases, then they're gonna be held up by like investigations and inquiries, and she's not gonna be able to investigate Sam because she's gonna be busy dealing with the government. And so, this is Gwen is like, yeah, this is in a roundabout way. If you do your cases, you'll help Sam, which like it's not, but like sure, that's if it makes you feel better. And Alice kind of sees that and understands that, and she's like, "There's they create a truce," and Alice is like, "I will do the casework, fine, whatever." And that leads us into scene 2. The case, Norris/Martin begins reading out a patient record from a Liverpool integrated care system for Kyla Barber, age 41, who lives on 45 Gardner Lane. She was an environmental health officer and was married to Violet Weaver. I don't know if she's still alive or not. We'll see. She has 2 doctors, named doctors. I didn't name them, but I put them on my list of names for the cases, and 5 different medications. I looked up the different medications, what they were for, and they were nothing surprising. It was like anxiety, mental health issues, and stuff like that. So the medication made sense. It was a lot. It was 5 of them, but it made sense. She was recently admitted prior for acute depressive episodes in 2012, and currently she is admitted under the Mental Health Act. I believe it's similar to the Baker Act here in the United States. She was admitted by, she's being looked over by Joseph Block in the Clockview Hospital. It says that she was detained by the police per Section 136, don't know what that means, and has had visual/auditory hallucinations, distress, paranoia, confusion, and amnesia. 2 different types of amnesia. Dissociative amnesia, and I forgot the other one, but basically just amnesia in general. She was then diagnosed with acute psychosis, schizophrenia, anxiety, and PTSD. It says that there's a recommended further treatment for her safety and for other safety to keep her in the hospital, and that to put her through antipsychotic medicine and psychotherapy, see if they can help her. But the assessment to see if that would help her or not, the assessment was delayed due to missing patient. She ran away, somehow got away, or disappeared. Who knows? Then there's a transcript of a recent counseling session with, I believe it's Joseph Block. The therapist is only labeled as J, and the only other J with Joseph Block was the mental health provider in the Clockview Hospital, so it makes sense that it's Joseph, but it might not be. But right now, Occam's razor, parsimony, it's Joseph Block. So, okay, those are the things that are certain. Those are the things that are well established and facts as to what happened. Now we're getting into some more abstractions. And yeah, so she starts dissociating. She's talking about changing objects like sand to rock to cloth to cotton, something like that. Very alchemical based, obviously. She needs to tell him what happened at the Man Island developments. So she was an environmental health officer. And so there's the implication that she was working with the Man Island developments per her work. And that's what caused her to have acute psychosis, schizophrenia, anxiety, and PTSD. And he asked her that, and she says that it doesn't make sense. He tells her to try anyway. And so she does. She's like, I don't know what happened. And he's like, I need you to tell me just how you felt. I don't care about what actually happened. Don't try to understand what, just tell me what happened. And then she starts doing her, it's like an intonation. It's like she's being consumed by the archivist, but it's not. It's slightly different. This feels more, I don't know, it feels different than what the archivist does, but slightly similar in terms of his just continued verbal vomit of horror. That's really cool and really good, but also this is the most abstract and surreal I've seen Protocol or Archives. There's been some episodes that are you have to dive deep into the interpretation of it, but this one was so surreal in its presentation, in its details, and how it talks and stuff, that it's hard for me to understand exactly what happened. And I'm trying my best. I tried my best, and I think I got something. Don't know how it fits yet. Obviously, I feel like what I have come to the conclusion of makes sense, but has yet to be integrated into the story. Obviously, it means that we're gonna learn more about this in a future episode. So there's some points of focus as she begins. She's talking about sand, water, dancers, blood. She talks about mitosis at one point, about the growth of cells. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and she becomes here. She's talking about the creation of man? I don't know. Creation of something. She talks about dancers that are in 6 exaltations, which the framing of that detail tells me that it's dancers in 6 different positions. But exaltation is about a rejoicing or celebration thing. So I don't really know what that is. And through that enjoyment, rejoicing, whatever, exaltation, they change her into home. And so I guess the 6 dancers are the people who made her, or made the thing that she's thinking about. People live in home, and they call it Liverpool, which I believe, I had 2 different transcripts to look at, and both had Liverpool, Liuerpol, written out. I believe it's supposed to be Liverpool, a more antiquated version to write it. And then 6 dancers became 7. So someone else added in for the dancers. They turned the home into a city, which hurts her, and talks about the growth of industry hurting the environment, and seems to be going through the Industrial Revolution. So now it makes the idea of before it was just the beginning of Liverpool becoming modern, or not modern, but becoming a town and then becoming a city. going through the Industrial Revolution and a lot of bloodshed. There's so much bloodshed and bones breaking and moments of peace as well. Then the modernization makes it angry again. I can understand, the idea of like a city being built on the bones of others, bloodshed, war, subjugation, all of that is common within like colonization or capitalism, and capitalism's a big theme in archives, at least. I haven't really detected that in protocol, but doesn't mean that it's not there. I mean, obviously, there's the side of the British government being kind of bad, governments being bad in protocol. But either way, the idea that these cities are built on the bones of the dead and the blood, and how it keeps coming back to like its bones, its veins, its body being incorporated with the blood of others. And so it makes sense, but also doesn't, because of how abstract it is in its presentation. And that's not a bad thing. It's like amazing. It's so well written, so confusing. There's a moment where it calls it a canker of glass, a building that erects that promises prosperity, and that causes it to finally be given to its anger, I guess. It and the people that were sacrificed to build into it, the city Liverpool, are angry, and they begin to destroy the city. The dancers turn on the city as well. It's described as dancers that you never saw. And it says, it's like she's speaking to Jay, but it's also speaking to a general you, second person. And she says, this is no place for you here. There is no place for you here. This is not for you, which feels very House of Leaves. But, I feel like I've heard that before in archives, in protocol, but it's escaping my mind if it's true. Joseph asks if Kyla's still here with us, and Kyla says that she is not her, she's not Kyla, she is here. And Joseph asks what happened to her, not what happened to the place. So he's trying to clarify for her, I asked you what happened to you, not what happened to the place, which is interesting. And Jay says he doesn't know if this is helping. And Kyla says to let her be home. And the transcript ends there. Interesting stuff. Scene 3 begins. Celia approaches, and Alice hides her discomfort with a quick assessment, building, angry, which is why the description of this episode is building parentheses angry -- n/a. They start talking about what to do with Sam and Colin being gone. Like how do they start investigating? And Celia tells Alice to focus on the why. Alice says that they should return to Hilltop Road Center. Maybe there's going to be more information there, but Celia reiterates that it is a bad idea. And she says that we don't know what it is, lie. It marks it as a lie. She says, and we don't know if it's still dangerous, lie. Marks it as a lie. Two very distinct glitches as she is speaking. She's lying because she knows what it is and knows that it is still dangerous. And then she says something about like how she was still with Sam when he left. And right when she says left, lie. A glitch, another one. He didn't leave. He was taken. He was pushed. And I mean, she's lying in terms of he left, I don't know, voluntarily. I don't think she's like she didn't do it. She didn't do it, but she's definitely culpable in some ways. But anyway, she's lying because she knows that it wasn't just that simple. And Alice gets briefly frustrated with Celia, and then apologizes to her. And then Gwen summons them, like she knocks on the door on the window between the office and her office, and only Celia goes in. She's like, Alice doesn't want to deal with Gwen, and Celia's like, I'll do it. Goes into scene 4, and Celia enters Gwen's office, and Gwen asks Celia to look at her PC, and she looks at it and she sees a hand. I don't know, it's not described in too much detail, but I don't know if it's like a hand like against the screen of the PC or outside of it, or like I saw some people talking about it, and like there was a hand coming out of like a keyboard or something. Not sure. Either option is terrifying and cool. When Celia looks at the hand, I think there's a moment she tries to like touch it, and Gwen is like, "Don't do that." And the hand, as per the transcript, slurps back into the computer, which causes a really interesting sound in the episode.
I think it's probably Collins. Is it? Don't touch it! Oh, there it goes.
The audio is interrupted for a moment, and that's such a really cool moment, sound effect there. And Gwen says it's been happening before. She's seen the hand before. And Celia says that she's seen teeth on her keyboard. Also, I didn't write it down, but they are adamant. They are like, this is Colin's hand. No way to confirm or deny. Parsimony, he got eaten by the computer. That's probably his hand. Celia tries to reach out to Gwen, saying like, if you need any help, just let me know. But Gwen rejects her and tells her that I'm busy, which is a lie, and that I won't need your help. So, as they're talking, Gwen does get an email ping. She doesn't react to it like overtly. And Celia leaves, and she finally opens the email, and she reads it and says, "What?" And then the scene ends there. Gotta see what that is now. And in scene 5, we are through Alice's phone, and she's leaving a message for Luke, her brother, and she asks how he's doing. And she sent money by PayPal because he's touring with his band outside of the country. And she tells him that she needs to speak to a human being and asks him to call her back. And the episode ends. So yeah, really interesting episode. A short one, thankfully, but also not one that is unimportant. I feel like this is so much deeper, but we are just scratching the surface right now, and that's terrifying, scary, and really fun. So Alice and Gwen are arguing. Their arguing now feels less like annoying banter, like in previous episode in the first season. Every time they talked, they argued about something, but that felt like annoying banter. Oh, I hate you, you know. But like they're colleagues, and they're just egging each other. But here, it feels more like stressed out tension. And to me, that's better, more fun than whatever was happening before, because now these two have had history arguing with each other. And now they have something actually to argue about, and it gets even worse. They start hitting each other worse, and that's really fun. Like, you can tell that they're on the edge. Like, their arguments before were simple arguments, and nothing was going to come out of them. But now, it feels like they're on the edge of, like, actual full fighting. And I love, towing that edge. Yeah, so I have no idea what that case was about. I have no idea what it was supposed to do. Kyla, I believe, tapped into the history of Liverpool in the Man Island developments, perhaps, somehow. And I believe it might portend doom for Liverpool, because she's talking about how the city is getting destroyed. And so that might be like a premonition, an omen. Like, hey, at some point, the alchemical nonsense in this world is gonna like push back and like destroy a big chunk of Liverpool. So there's some questions. Basic question of what? What was that? What? And then there's an important questions for things that stand out to me. So the 6 to 7 dancers and the canker of glass, which might be the Shard of London, but that's in London, not Liverpool. I don't know. But the dancers and the glass, the canker of glass, are too specific for me of details, because in the entire surrealist nightmare that Liverpool's history was, every single sentence could be connected to something. It's maybe like a degree or two away from like an actual thing or an actual concept in building cities, in people hurting each other and stuff like that. Steel, blood, sweat, water, pollution, everything sort of fits in a very surreal way. But dancers, to me, feels very specific of a word choice, because I cannot, off the top of my head at least, think of what that could be beyond like people who started it. The I forget the official term, like the progenitors of Liverpool sounds like an eldritch horror thing, but like the people who established Liverpool, that's it. Could be the dancers, but like, why are they dancers? Why not the friends, the people, or whatever? Why is it dancers? And then canker of glass is also interesting, because canker specifically brings into mind internal mouth. And so, the case did talk about body parts, but canker of glass is very distinct than the actual buildings that it was talking about. It would talk about individual types of buildings, but canker of glass is a description to me that seems very specific, and specifically because it preceded the getting angry at the people in the city. It rose, the canker of glass rose, the promised prosperity, and all of a sudden the the city, Liverpool, the people that was built on top of, got really angry and destroyed a bunch of things. And that, to me, says that the canker of glass is something specific. Like I said, it might be the Shard of London, but I cannot be sure about that. Specifically also because the Shard of London is in London and not Liverpool. Unless for some reason in this, Magnus Institute moved from London to Manchester in this universe. Somehow, maybe the Shard was erected in Liverpool instead of London. Who knows? But yeah, the dancers and the Shard, not the Shard, the canker of glass, two very specific details that stand out to me, might mean something. Don't know yet. And then the response of Joseph is different than what I expected. So, he asks her to describe what happened in the Man Island developments. What happened to you? And she says it's hard to understand, make sense of what happened. He says, just try to tell me the feeling. Don't try to make sense of it, just tell me the feeling. And that's when she starts spouting all this history of Liverpool, Liverpool stuff. And as she's winding down, he tells her, no, tell me what happened to you, not what happened to this place. And that feels different than what I think it should be. I think, a normal person who doesn't know anything, a person who's just a normal therapist would be like, oh my God, this is crazy. I am in over my head. I don't know what's happening. No, he is not confused. He sounds annoyed and worried. He says, doesn't know if this is helping. Like, that to me says that he knows exactly what happened. He just needs to know the exact details. And she starts spouting all this out and losing her mind a little bit more. He's like, this is not going to do anything. And whenever he asks questions, they're leading questions. He knows what he wants to get from her. And I don't know, it feels like he knows something more than he should be. Celia lying is so fun. She's lying so much. Almost every other line that comes out of her mouth has a glitch in it. And I'm pretty sure she's going to start getting buried in her own lies, and then she's going to be discovered. And I'm so here for it. I love her so much. I need to see the consequences of her actions. Girly, the Quincy's of her conses. Colin's body is either being rejected or integrated by FR3D1. So the hand and teeth appearing in the computers is either an accident or intentional or side effect, right? So an accident, maybe like Freddy just sort of cannot take in all of Colin, and sometimes he just aberrant moments, his hand comes out or his teeth come out, right? Or it's intentional, trying to scare Gwen and the people in the OIR. Fear, really important to the world. Or maybe side effects, they're doing something to Colin, and because the computer has Colin consumed, then he just happens to appear all of a sudden, and that's a side effect of what's been happening to him in the computer. Real fun imagery there. I just have written cool slorp. Gwen gets an interesting email, which is another thing to look out for. They do this a lot in Protocol, which I'm on the fence of if it's good or not, but the characters get interesting emails and they react to it, and we don't get the contents of it. And it feels like an attempt to be like, hey, watch next episode so you can hear what they got. And I feel like it doesn't really trust the audience to want to continue reading, but I also trust that the email has important information, as every email has done prior, has continued the plot. But it does still feel like they're trying to entice someone to return next week, which, fair. You are an anthology series that releases every week. You want to have that audience retention. This just doesn't feel like the most best implemented version of that. That's just my opinion. Gwen turning away from Celia is sad, and it's like she became the head of the OIR, replacing Lena, and she's turning away from the people around her. There's a moment I liked that Alice is arguing with Gwen. She's like, why are we still doing this when our friends are still gone? And she says our friends to Gwen in regards to Sam and Colin. So she's saying that Gwen, Alice, Sam, and Colin are all friends, which may or may not be true. It was detected as truth. There was no glitch there. Alice does believe that, which is real sweet. Gwen doesn't respond to that or try to correct her. She's like, your friends. She would be the person to be like, your friends disappeared. She would be the person to be like, I don't know who you're I'm not friends with them like you think I am. And you know that if Gwen had said that I'm not their friend, Alice would have fought her, which would have been also interesting. But I think, restraint there for the writer's part, but also really nice moment for Alice to be like, our friends. And Gwen doesn't say anything about that. But she's still turning away from Celia, from Alice. She's not accepting their help, even though she is in over her head. All of her characters are so damaged. Sam's somewhere. Alice is tense and scared. Celia is burying herself in her own lies, and Gwen is separating from everybody. This is a recipe for a disaster, and I cannot wait to see it come to fruition. And finally, Alice's call to Luke is really interesting. I don't really know why it's there, beyond the fact that Alice is feeling alone. She doesn't feel like she's connecting to Celia, and Gwen obviously is not a source of comfort. She wants comfort. Usually it would be Sam, but Sam is gone. And so that's probably why. But also, I swear the continued reoccurrence of Luke and the money that Alice sends to Luke means something, is going to amount to something, but I don't know what it is. But at least this moment is setting that up for the future. So that's something to look out for. Anyways, episode 3 next week. Let me guess the name, because all these names are like office things, and I'm gonna guess it's something to do with like whiteboards or like whiteboards or whiteboards. I'm gonna guess the name. It's something to do with markers or drawing or like presentations or something like that. Oh, it's also like because so restructuring and then what was the first one called? Couldn't say that. Compartmentalising. So something about new things. Maybe it's getting a raise, getting upgraded, getting downgraded, getting fired. Who knows? Those are my guesses for episode 3. And I will see you then. Hello, we're back. My predictions were not correct at all, but that's fine. I'd moved, so I probably, I said I got all 4 gentlemen's. I was gonna put them here, but one of them doesn't fit in this cubby. So we're back to making the tiny little different. This is coral, yeah, fish thing, yeah. Kind of thematic to this episode, kind of not. Anyways, summer is the bamboo. Last episode was that spring, the orchids. Yes. And so they're going to be over here now because that's where all 4 of them fit instead of just trying to change it. I'll start the rotation the next 4 episodes. That's fine. Anyways, episode 33, peer review. CAT 2RB 2365 the dates. The description is transformation, parentheses peer, / fear, parentheses void. The CAT2 is a subject, the peer, and rank B, don't know what that is. The DPHW is death 2, pain 3, helplessness 6, and weird 5. The date of the event was August 18th, 1996, and the date of the assessment is May 20th, 2024. The author of this statement was Aaron Blanton, and the air date was March 13th, 2025. The brief summary: there's an evil peer and enter Starkwall, and entities dark, vast, and lonely. So in scene 1, we are in the OIR, and Alice and Gwen can be heard arguing in the background. It's a really neat way to show. I think she says something like Alice says, "I'm gonna stuff this up your butt." We can hear that. Celia sighs. They're arguing in the background, and she begins a case, which is being read out by Chester/John, which is a statement and research lead for location CD 771 for the Magnus Institute, location in Manchester specifically. I didn't note this down, but there's 2 locations that we know of where these statements come from, and it's the Magnus Institute location itself in Manchester, and then the outreach center in, I believe, Oxford. And all the viabilities of subject, agent, and catalyst are low here, which I feel like is an inaccurate measurement, but oh well. There is no follow-up recommended due to acquisition risk, and the interviewer's comments were redacted at request by Dr. Welling. And it is an interview of Victoria Marcario, and the comments of the interviewer are all redacted. So in between her describing what happened, there are comments, interviewer comment redacted. It just says that, so it was crossed out. Interesting. There's a moment where she says, "Can I get you some tea?" And I'm guessing that the interviewer said no, which is telling me that they're at home, because why is she offering tea? But they are interviewing her. So I believe they're at her home at least. So she recounts her second date with James Dawn. They're in Blackpool, and they go to a beach, and then a diner, and then they go to the pier, and then an arcade. And then the interviewer asks something. I believe it's either when did it happen or when did you notice? And she says it was gradual change. And they go outside after the arcade, and he shows her the spot where he got his first kiss. She notices as they're walking that it's getting even colder, which is weird because it's the middle of summer. It's August. It should be warm outside, or at least, with some wind, but it was cold, or getting colder. When he shows her his first kiss location, they can't see the town lights, and they see some dark shadow obscuring the town, and they can see the shoreline. I assume it's they're looking at it and they can't see the town, but on that side and on that side there is the shoreline itself that they can see, but the town itself, like home, safety, is not visible. I believe the interviewer asks, "Did you leave?" Something along those lines. She says no, because after the kiss, they decided to get caricature drawn back in the arcade, and so they go back to the arcade and they see a man blocking the door of the arcade saying, "Well, don't you two make a darling pair?" And she stresses that that it sounds weird, that the syllables are stressed oddly, like he doesn't say that usually, this random man. And they don't, I mean, they're kind of weirded out, but they just keep going. And then they move past him into the arcade, and they're playing around with each other, and they bump into a woman spilling her food and her drinks. And they apologize to her, and she only smiles at them, like she didn't understand what was happening, what they were saying. And she just turns and walks away with all the food and water like stained on her. And so after that, they just decide to leave. The character person wasn't there, I think. And they decide to leave, and they go to the Ferris wheel first, just to like have one last thing, and then they can go home. But when they leave the arcade, it's even colder now, which is still odd. And the Ferris wheel has been turned off, the lights are turned off, everything's closed, which is odd because they were only in the arcade for like less than 5 minutes. And then they see that there is a huge fog that is blocking the town. There's just a huge fog, and it is enormous. They stress that it is enormous. They don't say that word. It's huge. And they decide to instead just go to a concession stand to get some food, and then we can go. And they see another man, the same man, sorry, blocking a different door to the concession stand. That repeats the same thing of, "Don't you make a darling pair," which is creepy. And then they're like, "Well, let's go to the cafe in the arcade then." And they turn back, and the arcade's now closed. Everything is closed. Everything is dark. And they see the same woman in the arcade grinning. Same. There was a moment where they said something that she still had blah, blah, blah on, and I didn't hear it well, and I thought it was like blood. But no, she just had stains on her clothes from when the drink and food got knocked out of her hand. Whatever. I just want to point that out for some observations in the future, but whatever. and they get back onto the pier, and it is all darkness, and they're all alone. There's no one else around, and they see that the pier extends all the way into the darkness, and the fog was not a fog. It was something huge and moving in the darkness that was blocking the sight of the town. And James sees the darkness as she does, and ignores it, or pretends to ignore it. He tries to hide his fear. He just wants to go to the gift shop. Let's go to the gift shop. And he does not want to leave. She wants to get the fuck out. Very fair. And she's trying to make them go. And in the end, she just sort of like makes him stop holding her hand, and she just goes to the pier, and he grabs her arm and tells her, "Please don't go. We're having such a lovely time," and insists that nothing is wrong, which obviously it is. He's just trying to hide it. And then the interviewer asks something, which I'm not sure what it was, but it's specifically that she responds with, "I don't know what that means, but maybe." And it doesn't matter. I don't know what that thing could be, what the interviewer would have asked. I don't know what that means. It's something. Probably like, "Do you think he was enthralled or something?" And she didn't know what that word was. Something along those lines of using terminology that normal people wouldn't use. That is just something to point out. So as she's trying to leave, he begs her to tell him it's okay, but she runs free instead. She runs into the darkness. She hears the heavy water underneath her, and she hears James screaming behind her. And then the interviewer says something. I believe it's saying something along the lines of, "It's not your fault." And she says, "If you say so," which like saying if you say so makes sense to be like it's not your fault. That I'm pretty sure we've heard something similar to that in Archives or Protocol. Either way, she's running, and I think she gets hit by something and falls, and she still sees darkness all around her. This part gets a little fuzzy. This part gets a little weird. In a way that I don't understand, not in terms of the content. She talks about like destruction of the Blackpool Pier, which I looked up is an actual pier that has not been destroyed. Could be, AU, the pier was actually destroyed, or, something happened to the pier. She saw that something happened to the pier, and the interviewer asks what happened to the pier, and she's like, I don't know, have you seen any reports about the Blackpool Pier being destroyed? So I'm not fully sure if like something hit her or something happened. The pier disappeared. I don't know. We'll get into that speculation. But yeah, she files a missing report for Jamestown, and then I believe the interviewer asks, why tell us? And she says because she wanted to tell someone the real story. She told a heavily edited story to the police, and she wanted to speak to someone who would believe her. And then the interviewer says something else. She says, please don't go. The interviewer says something else, and the case ends. And Celia types in the assessment of it, which I assume is the assessment at the beginning, or the description of the episode. And Alice spooks her, setting down a notebook, a heavy notebook. And it's Colin's notebook from the mess of his office. And Alice says something mean about him. And Celia is like, hey, come on. And Alice is like, listen, this is how I'm going to process his death. So let me be. She's being snappy at Celia. And I love that for them. It seems that the journal is written in computer code, in German, and in cipher. And Alice says, I think she's going to try to decipher all of that. And Celia comments that Alice is starting to sound like Colin, crazy, paranoid. And she says that's good. In scene 2, Gwen calls the OIR bosses and asks for Lena's forwarding address. She's changed her phones, and her only email is a civil service email, one that's no longer in use because she got fired, and there's no way to contact her. She lies and says she has mail to forward to her. And the person who responds to Gwen, says that she's not going to give Lena's info, she's not going to break GDPR. And Gwen is like, oh, thanks so much for your help. Okay, Karen. And as she's like dealing with this lack of information, someone walks in. She yells at Alice, saying, Alice, please don't, I don't want any more. And it's not Alice, it is actually Brett Lars. Mr. Lars, call me Brett, he says. He's voiced by Mike Toms. I didn't register, honestly, that he was American. I've seen some people be like, oh my god, an American in Protocol, which the last American we got. I've talked about him so many times in this channel. I literally just forgot his name. He's the guy, he's the police cop, Mr. Min, him. That's the only other American we've gotten. And this is the second American we've gotten in Archives, Protocol. And oh, Lars. Brett. Call him Brett. He has an appointment with Gwen, with Miss Bouchard. And she doesn't remember setting up an appointment weeks ago. And he says that his last meeting was years ago with Lena as well. And Brett says that Gwen wanted to discuss budget adjustments and if Starkwall could offer security to the OIR. Gwen assures the meeting is only exploratory, and he says that the security in the OIR is very lacking. He literally just walked right in and no one stopped him. Gwen says that they have other assets for off-site security, and Brett had warned Lena about using unpredictable external agents. And Starkwall has been a major factor in controlling these externals. Lena had decided to leave the Starkwall connection before. And Gwen says that the reports show that Starkwall had increased the danger of these missions, and he accepts these mistakes And he notes that incomplete intel and unreliable allies leads to these bad situations, but either way, they never left the job unfinished. He also states that he guarantees protection from anything that may come at them, which is registered as a lie. And Gwen declines, and he gives her his card when she decides to reconsider, not if. Usually you give a card and be like, here's my card in case if you reconsider. No, he says when you reconsider, which is definitely telling that he's very confident that she will reconsider. And he says they can set up a trial or a demonstration, whatever that may be. And then he mentions how big her office is, not noticing how big it is since speaking with Lena. And this is marked as a lie as well for some reason. I'll get into that. And the episode ends here. Notes. So, first off, this is the same format in terms of the case as 9 rolling with it and 17 saved copy. The differences are the first 2 episodes were assessments for the artifact CD137, which was the dice, the evil dice, and candidate PD553, which was old Darien from the other universe. That's it. However, this is a lead for location CD771. Don't know what these CD and PD. Oh, there's D's there. I don't know what those mean yet, or the numbers. The numbers are slightly similar, kinda. There's 3s and 1s and 7s. Don't know if that's something to be deciphered yet. But either way. And then the difference of there's no follow-up either. Usually in the first 2, there was follow-ups for recommended assessments or recommended incarceration, something like that. There is no follow-up because the potential acquisition risk may be too high, perhaps may be dangerous. And then the comments were redacted by Dr. Welling. Now, Dr. Welling is a very important character that we've only seen in a handful of times, such as in 17 Saved Copy. He was the person recommended the incarceration for Mutate Materia research program, Welling research program. That was Dr. Welling. And then in 21 Breaking Ground, he's mentioned very briefly by Kennings in terms of, Dr. Wellings has been studying a lot about stuff, and so he should know about constellations and for their great work. He's mentioned very, very briefly in Breaking Ground. And then we see him killed in episode 28, Interruptions, when Sam is being intoned by the archivist, and Sam is giving a statement about being interviewed by the Magnus Institute and walking into a door and seeing Dr. Welling's skeleton tear Welling apart. That's when we saw him die, at least. Maybe dead. I don't know. We haven't gotten any confirmation about that yet. But yes, Dr. Welling has been here before. The statement itself, entities, possible entities, dark, vast, and lonely. There's a very big mix of all 3 of them here, and it's kind of hard to piece together which one is the most predominant one. But, here we go. Darkness. There's a big focus on the darkness. Lights turning off. The cold, cold water, stuff like that is motifs we've seen with the dark in archives that we haven't much seen in Protocol in general. And there's just a big focus on darkness itself here. And then there's like the vast, because there's that large thing blocking the town, which comes to mind episode 107, Matter of Perspective, when Jan Kilbright, 109, 106, oh my god, one of those, when Jan Kilbright sees something blocking the lights, something vast. That I get that feeling here as well, blocking the shoreline in the water, and water also being a big, vast motif as well. And then fog, and then loneliness. So the lonely aspects here are more thematic than aesthetic, because the dark and the vast are more aesthetic things, but the lonely here seems a little bit more thematic, especially because of the fog and emphasis on darling couple. And don't leave me alone, don't go. Along with the man blocking the door, he probably has, that's probably an external avatar, has a woman as a victim, and then he takes James. James screams from either pain or fear. We don't know. We just heard him screaming. And yeah, those are like, it feels more lonely focused, lonely forward, with aspects of dark and the vast. Can't really know for sure which one is there. Obviously, it's not going to be a definite answer, but it's really interesting to piece apart. I just wanted to know, I thought this was an origin of Needles because they started talking about like a guy and the way he talked sounded kind of like Needles. But there's no mention of anything like sharp coming out of his body, because that would have definitely been something to know. Like, hey, this man that's blocking us and is kind of acting weird has a lot of needles around his body. But she doesn't mention that, so it's probably not needles. But yeah, so at the end of the statement, interestingly, Victoria says, "Please don't go," and then there's another interviewer comment, which we don't know what that is specifically. So we know that she's at home because she offers tea. Okay, so there are two interpretations as to the ending for me. One, we know that she's traumatized and doesn't want the Magnus Institute interviewer to go and to leave her, which is, I feel like, a safe basis as to what's happening. Or, here's when I go a little bit more conspiratorial. The pier which disappeared. Also, I didn't talk about that. I believe the more, like, it's a lead for, which means that they're trying to look for it, and there's potential acquisition risk. Probably it's hard to get the pier which disappeared. I don't know. That feels right, but also wrong. I don't know. The pier sends a person to get Victoria. We've seen multiple times in archives specifically how people who escape these locations seem to be hounded by these locations after the fact. For example, we've gotten a lot of it in Extinction episodes, specifically in Time of Revelation and in Reflection. I couldn't explain it correctly because I was doubting the numbers of the episodes. So here's me explaining. 134, Time of Revelations, it is a woman giving a statement about the Hillarites and the leader of the Hillarites discovering an entrance to a separate world, and it's Adelard Decker writing to Gertrude Robinson about this woman, and he says that she looks to be, she has the look of someone who is going to get eaten. That's not the exact wording, but he thinks that she's going to be consumed again by the extinction world, and that he hopes, specifically that he hopes that she finds the door to leave the second time around, which obviously Hiller, the guy that she was chasing, did not find the door. La porte is la porte, etc., etc. And 156 Reflection, it's still also Adelard Decker talking to Gertrude Robinson, giving a statement about this young man who goes looking for a location for a rave, and he goes in through like a mirror maze and sees a fairground with a bunch of humanoid things eating humans, and he escapes by escaping through a mirror that has no reflection of his. And then he states, Adelard tells Gertrude, don't go looking for this man. He give him peace. He says that he sees long limp things following him. So there's the implication there. Also, along with the woman in Revelations, that he is going to be chased down by this extinction monster. That's what I'm talking about here. Episode 47 and The New Door, Helen Richardson escapes Michael's corridors, and Michael comes back to get her. And so the idea that Victoria escaped the pier, and the avatar that's leading the pier finds her again. And Welling, I don't know, I cannot explain if that's the explanation. Avatar trying to get someone back to their domain. If that is that, I cannot explain why this is all written out. But whatever. It is Welling redacts the comments of the avatar for our or the reader's safety, right? So it's assuming that the avatar is, I guess, interviewing, posing as the Magnus Institute interviewer, writing this down for Victoria, and the words that they are saying eventually takes Victoria into the domain, the fear domain. There's an implication there. She says, please don't go. He says something, they say something else, and that's it. Maybe Victoria was taken. There's an implication there. Maybe not. I don't know. It could also easily just be her fully really traumatized and not wanting to be alone because it is lonely focused. I don't really know exactly which one of these is the most correct one. It's really fun though. I really like this statement. The last part here, the one I'm trying to pick apart, try to understand. It feels edited. It feels different. It doesn't feel connected to the entire of the story. And I would not be surprised if the case written by Aaron Blanton was edited by Alexander D. Newell and Jonathan Sims, because they've done this before in episode 32, A New You, and Holland Guthrie. And he's stated that the piece was edited at the very end, and that's what made me dislike it. So I'm kind of holding my opinion of the piece itself until I get further notice that the last part was edited or not. Either way, I enjoyed the statement, the casement enough. I liked it. It had really the format of like the interviewer not saying anything causes you to fill in the blanks as to what they might have said in regards to how Victoria responds. That's really fun. And then weird man, darling couple. Oh, don't you look like a darling couple? You could, also like, maybe the man. I keep saying he in terms of the interview because I keep thinking it's the man, but she would have recognized him. Whatever. The man in the pier keeps saying darling couple, and I could totally see him wanting to separate them. Lonely. So there's that. I don't know. There's a lot of things in the air right now for that. I did want to note as well, Aaron Blanton is the creator of the podcast, What Happened to Skinner? I might check that out a little later. Gwen wants to see Lena, and she probably wants to get more info about the job. I don't think Lena would ever tell Gwen more about the OIR unless Gwen probably like begs, pleads, apologizes, does something to get in her good graces. And Gwen would never do any of that. She's too proud and too stubborn and would probably need to be in even worse straits to even allow herself to apologize, to beg to Lena. So I don't know why she was calling, because I know she knows that it's going to be pulling teeth out for her and Lena to meet on the same level. It's going to be difficult. And maybe she succeeds at it. Maybe not. We'll see. That's really, really fun. So the meeting with Brett was scheduled weeks ago. Was it really? Interesting. Because Gwen only became the head of OIR on May 13th. It is currently May 20th. Only 7 days have passed. That's 1 week, not weeks ago. So was it scheduled with Lena? I don't think so. Very interesting there. Gwen definitely did not set up the meeting. She lied about her assistant mixing up the dates, and so that lie could have been, having an assistant in the first place. I don't believe she even knew about this meeting. She didn't write that email. I don't know who did it. Freddie, maybe somebody, but not Gwen set up this appointment with Brett. I did want to note that in the conversation, there's really interesting moments where there is no lie detected and there is a lie detected. And I wanted to point those out because they say something. So there is no lie detected to having the latest meeting Brett has had in years since Lena. So, truths. He met with Lena. And that was his last meeting. Yes? Okay, established. Gwen lies about her current security being satisfactory. She says, "Oh, we're fine right now." That's a lie, which is a lie because she was attacked by Ing 5 in 20 Social Stigma. And if you remember specifically in the episodes prior, Lena had said the Starkwall has escalated the situation. And Gwen wanted Starkwall to protect her before going to Ink 5 and see what happened. Ink 5 got angry with Gwen and they attacked her. And that wouldn't have happened if Gwen had a Starkwall, the security protection in the way of Ink 5 attacking her. I wanted to note that Brett lies about guaranteeing safety. Before I continue, I did want to also mention that, very interestingly, every single time a lie is mentioned, it's at the end of a complete statement. Sometimes at the end of a sentence, sometimes in the middle of a sentence, but generally it's about a complete statement. So for example, 2 episodes ago, Celia lies to Jack saying that she was okay when she was in Archives universe, lie, and so will Sam, lie. I think so will Sam is an incomplete statement, but those are different statements that are lied about. But there's other moments, say when Celia's been the most liar to have glitches on her. So Celia had said that she was late because of a boiler explosion or something like that. She was late to work because her place had slightly flooded. That lie was marked at the end, near the end, because it was like a big lie, so just through an entire sentence. But these episodes, most of the lies have been at the very end of the sentence. And so it's sort of marking the entire sentence, entire statement as a lie. And so most of the time, those sentences are pretty short. You can tell exactly what lie it is. Alice says, "I'm fine," lie. She's lying about being fine. However, Brett has multiple different interesting things in his statements that could be lies. And so there's a moment that Brett lies about guaranteeing safety, right? We knew that. However, it's interesting to point out that it's specifically a lie because it may be perhaps a lie about, I cannot guarantee safety because we have failed in the past. Cannot guarantee that because you have failed. Or perhaps he's lying because there's a possibility of pulling back that protection, of refusing to protect whoever they are hired to. And I feel that is more indicative of Starkwall being like, "Yeah, we'll protect you. I guarantee you that we'll protect you." Lie. I cannot guarantee that we will protect you. And it's a difference between will and can. Can protect you, will protect you. And I don't know which one is which. Both are really interesting. Both can do a lot. And then there's a lie at the very end of it when he says he never realized how big the office is when last talking with Lena. So we know obviously that his last meeting was with Lena and it was his last meeting. Those we've established that that's not a lie. But here there's different things in that statement that could be a lie. So it could purely just be a dig at Gwen. It's a lie because he's like, "Oh yeah, I have seen how big it is, but I'm lying about how I have not realized how big it is." And it's implying, small Gwen makes big office big, that, it's just sort of like cutting down at her. I feel like that's part of it. But also, it could be a lie about the location. He's lying about being in this office meeting with Lena. Maybe it was in a different location that he met Lena. Or it could be who he met with. It could be someone else meeting Lena, meeting him here in this office instead of Lena. He only said to Gwen, "Last meeting was with your predecessor." Maybe Lena wasn't her predecessor. Maybe there was someone else above Lena that's technically the boss that we don't know. I don't know. The lie can be either in the big office or Lena or just a dig. One of those two. I feel like it's a combo. It's a double combo of one of those three. It's just interesting to note there. And finally, I predict that Gwen will get Starkwall in as security to the OIR because of what happened with Inc. 50. I mean, it makes kind of sense. She told him that she wasn't gonna hire them. She didn't email them. I don't think so. She didn't email Starkwall to meet with them, but she had said before that she wanted Starkwall, Jesus, to protect from Inc. 50. And then she got attacked by Inc. 50. And so she's probably going to think about that moment, be like, I needed security. Lena could not guarantee security. She doesn't know that Brett is lying about guaranteeing security. So it's really, I think, enter Starkwall stage left. I think that Starkwall is going to be in here, and we're going to get a lot more of Brett. And hey, Brett's voice kind of does it for me, Anyways, really good episode, really good statement. I need to know if that last part was edited or not. It feels edited, but I can't really say for sure. But anyways, I will see you all for the next episode.
All right. Sorry if I'm not 100%. I am getting over a cold. Thankfully, it's a shorter one. So, without further ado, episode 34, Eliminations. CATXXX dash XXXXXXXX dash XXXXXXXX. The description is error, parentheses, unknown source. Obviously, CAT at XXXXX is non-applicable. The rank, non-applicable. I think there should be more X's in that first CATXX sequence, because the other X's line up with actual numbers, but we're missing the rank and letter X's. But anyways, DPHW, death is X, pain is X, helplessness is X, and weird is X. The date of the incident is non-applicable, and the date of the assessment is non-applicable. The author of this episode was Jonathan Sims. The air date was March 20th, 2025. Brief summary: Sam and the LEZ and Gardner's domain. Entities are the Slaughter and the Eye. So in scene 1, there's tape recorders throughout the entire episode. Sam wakes up in a medical room, and there's Georgie, Captain Georgie, and she says that he has to convince her that he's normal. He's been asleep in and out for a couple of days with malnutrition and dehydration. Georgie asks if he's human. Sam is confused and says yes. What else? What other answer is there? Georgie's people searched where Sam might have came from. She says he only came from the square mile, but cannot see any sort of entry point at all. She accuses him of being an avatar, and he says that he had dreams of people. Celia and Georgie were there as well. I didn't write any notes about this. I just realized this. What do you mean dreams? Is that like after you traveled? Like, did you get dreams after you traveled through the rift, or did you have dreams while you were in the bed? And also, that is not something we've encountered before, actually. So, because at least Darian never said anything. Darian in episode 17, saved copy, didn't say anything about having dreams after the fact. So I don't know where these dreams came from. And also, dreams of Celia and Georgie? Interesting. Sam says that they call them externals as part of the OIAR, and he realizes, he asks what year is it, because he's like, oh my god, is it in the future? Is there apocalypse in the future? But no, it's the same year, 2024. And so he realizes he's actually just from a different dimension, which floors her at first, which I agree with him. Like, he says, like, oh, you were thinking about monsters, but different dimensions is surprising you. She's like, it's not on my bingo card. Like, mama, where do you think the entities went to? To a different dimension? Weren't you there, girly? Whatever. He tells her about the tear in Hilltop Shopping Center, which she reacts to. And she explains about the change. She describes it as a psychoformed fear farm for otherworldly entities. Oh, alliteration. And otherworldly entities outside of human understanding. She says it didn't last long, objectively, and the time wasn't working right. I believe it's theorized that it took about 6 months. I think I think Johnny Sims and Action J. Newell said something along the lines of it took about 6 months for the change. Some places didn't fully change back. It says there's lingering fear radiation. And the wardens, they're the wardens, keep the horrors in and the people out. And Georgie's about to tell about past intrusions when Warden Dave enters, and he says they found Heidi's body, which, if you remember from last episode, or sorry, first episode, Heidi was killed by the archivist. Got too hard for my sweater. In scene 2, Georgie's in Georgie's office. They find the tape recorder next to her body, Heidi's body, and which was shriveled, sort of like sucked clean, had clear curved glass embedded around her body. And Georgie knows about Heidi's domain, which was about cameras. And so she gets everyone in high alert, and she tells Warden Dave, if anyone begins getting poetic, grab them and run. And Georgie takes the claw hammer and destroys the tape, which parallels when she kept destroying tapes in season 5. She hates those things, and I agree. In scene 3, Georgie shows Sam the broken tape recorder, and he tells her about the thing chasing them. Alice calls it an archivist, he tells her, which gets Georgie reacting. And he describes exploring the Magnus Institute and awakening the archivist, and he doesn't know what it wants. He says it's hard to look at, and it wears rags and cloaks, but its face is all eyes. If it is who Georgie believes, there won't be anything left to rebuild. She's thinking about John, obviously, here. So in scene 4, another tape recorder begins, and there's a gardener tending to her strawberries. The gardener is voiced by Rebecca Ashley. And the archivist appears and begins feeding on her. And she begins intoning, and she remembers hearing about a man who goes into a cave for about 2 months and believed it was actually 4 months because time was warped for him, which made her very, very afraid. And she lingered on the idea of like time being warped and having like long stretched out moments of time that really terrified her. And so she said that the longest moment she was trapped in was when she killed a man. She was in a bar fight and pushed a man, and his head fell on, I think it was like the table or something, and it hit, and manslaughter. She manslaughtered somebody, and she felt time frozen when she pushed the man. And so in the change, I liked how she said it was when the world died. I like that description of the apocalypse. In the change, she was taken to a dark cave, and she says that she was not afraid of darkness or of tight spaces. She neither was afraid of death either. There were others in the cave as well, and at the very center of it was a rusty knife, the only thing they could see in that dark cave. And so she felt the fear of frozen time, of the fear of potential murder, of being a potential killer. And she was the first to take the knife, and she feels the fear of violence. And here the archivist makes a knife appear, I guess, gives her a rusty knife, and begins stabbing herself. And she says there's no escape from the eternal second of violence as she slits her throat and dies. And the archivist is satiated, is happy with the food that it got from the gardener, and leaves. And that was the end of the episode. It's a really short episode, thank God. My throat is killing me. Notes, there's not that many notes either. Information sharing between Sam and Georgie is always fun. I need them to share more. I need them to talk more. I need them to start talking about other people and other things that are happening and stuff like that. I need to know what other incursions into the LEZ have been like. Georgie briefly referenced it last, or 2 episodes, 3 episodes ago? Episode 31. 3 episodes ago. Yes. She briefly like referenced people coming in, and I want to know why. I mean, I can understand why, but I want to know like in world why people would want to get into these locations. Georgie hasn't responded to Celia. Sam talked about Celia in the first episode, and he talked about her again. And so I don't know if Georgie probably doesn't remember her or thinks it's some other Celia, thinking that, Celia was disappeared and maybe presumed dead or something. But Celia has her second name, Ripley. Celia Ripley. I don't know if she had a second name during the apocalypse beyond just Lynn Hammond. I don't think Georgie knows about Lynn Hammond. And so there's some disconnect happening between Georgie and knowing Celia. Also, there's a moment, I didn't write this down, there's a moment where, Sam's talking about the OIR, and like he's talking about the archivist is stalking them, and Georgie asks, who are we? And he names Alice and Gwen only in the OIR, his colleagues, doesn't name Celia. And I think that there's a reason for that, but beyond just him like, oh my god, she pushed me into this rift, which she didn't, but whatever. She worries that John is back, perhaps. I don't quite understand her saying like, if it is who I think it is, there'll be nothing at all to rebuild. Like, you could just kill him. You can just kill him. And like the fears are like gone partially. So he's just kind of killing people. But he's not going to destroy the entire world again. That's not possible. Unless it is. But they should be gone. Sam's description of the archivist. It's all eyes. This is just exactly like in episode 142 Scrutiny, talking about John consuming people statements without their consent. I wonder what other locations have fear radiation. Like if London, I can totally understand. That's actually really cool that even with all the fears gone, there's still some lingering remnants of eldritch power in like places with high energy fear loci. I saw someone online talking about like Nihilist Sun for the dark, and like New York, or like highly populated areas with like high concentration of fear. Kind of makes sense. It's really cool. That's really cool world building that there's still remnants of the apocalypse in different locations. When the gardener's talking about the man in the cave who stayed there for 2 months, but felt like it was 4 months, I believe she's talking about Michelle Seifer, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. That's French. I watched a video about like the fear of the dark or something, and it mentioned a man who went into the caves and had time warped, and there's been other people as well who have had time warped, and so I think it's Michelle Seifer. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And finally, this statement, her Gardner's statement in of itself, really cool, really interesting, like building of a domain. To think that there are other people who have that sort of same idea of fear of violence, really interesting building of that domain. So, because it is the fear of violence, it is a slaughter. Obviously, there's the mention of the dark, the buried, the end. But because specifically it's the violence, she says, where is it? There's no escape from the eternal second of violence. That to me is a slaughter through and through. I love the slaughter. Welcome back, slaughter. And obviously, the archivist, it's all eyes. It's the eye. And yeah, this is the end of that. Thank you so much for watching this. 4 episodes down. 4 more to go. Well, actually, 4 more to go to the next video. And then 4 other more is 30. That's 28. 7, 8. 8 of these clumps. Because I will have the last 2 episodes of the season be one singular video, just like I did last season. But yes, anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to plug my boyfriend's Twitch. The information is going to be in the description as well. He's doing Twitch streams. Really fun. He's playing, what was it? Hello Kitty Adventure World. I forget the name of it. Dark Cloud, My Sims. He's making food also. He's talking about architecture. I love him so much. Go check out his Twitch. It's going to be in the description. Information is going to be in the description for that. I was hoping to get the entity exploration for the next entity. It's a secret. Sooner rather than later. But then I got sick, so I couldn't record. So hopefully that'll be out by hopefully within the next 2 weeks. I gotta record and edit and stuff. Ugh. But that's in the works along with the next 4 episodes of the Magnus Protocol. So don't forget to be passionate, and I'll see you all later.